The diaspora, especially in the West, and the new diaspora is mainly techies and more techies. So some people say that because there are mostly techies, and that is the reason that they have been saved from wokeism a little bit. But have they inculcated the Sanatana values? Now, I have got Sankrant Sanu ji today. You know him very well. He uh, took voluntary retirement from Microsoft from a very senior position. And Vibhuti Ji, as usual, Wednesday 10 p.m. If it is Wednesday 10 p.m., Vibhuti Jha is going to be there. So let's go in. Please subscribe and please check our description where you will find links to support us and also to follow us on social media. Namaste, namaste everyone, and welcome Vibhuti ji and Sankrant ji. I hope you're doing well. And let's start straight away with Sankrant ji. Now, Sankrant ji, you're a hardcore techie. Now, please define for us what are the kind of people there in the diaspora. You can take US as your reference point.
Well, if you look at this particular question, which is in relationship to Sanatan, I would say there is really, you can look at three broad categories. There is a section of the ultra left, and most of you know one of the things I've said is the Indian politics as a rule is actually way left of American politics. I mean, we actually have an official communist party, whereas in the US, of course, officially being a communism has been, was banned at one point, and there was this whole thing. And even now, a lot of the communists who actually go to the US, they are violating US laws, because even now for naturalization, a citizen actually has to affirm this oath that they are not and have never been a member of a communist party. Uh, so this is, at least this was this this has been the case up
Okay,
until
just to interrupt, how did Siddhartha Varadarajan become an American citizen?
not only Siddharth Varadarajan. There is a whole slew of these people who have and in fact they are the ones that are representing India. Unfortunately, they are the
And
ones who
if
are.
I may say so, they just lie.
Yes, that's pretty
As
simple
usual.
answer. So they lie, and and one of the ways in that what they lie, especially what the ultra left communist forces in the US have done, that have come from India, is they create these front organizations. So oftentimes you trace these organizations, and they'll all have fancy names, you know India against communalism, something will be Indian minorities against Hindutva, some a new one these days is Hindus for human rights. The entire organization never talks about the rights of Hindus ever. Right? So there, it's just basically front organizations, and now the front organizations have gone more and more, they've become more and more devious, where not only are they representing ourselves as their opponents, which they are, I mean themselves as our opponents, they're even pretending to be us. So they're even now starting, because see, when they attack Hindus, at some point somebody says, well, what is the Hindu point of view? And now the Hindu point of view is also represented by organizations like Sadhana or Hindu for human rights. So if I go to the taxonomy, there is this one section which is very political. A lot of times they have gone through the college system in India. A lot of them might be JNU products from other places, and there is system by which then they are recruited and brought in. So they have people there that will say, okay, this young scholar is rising, and they pick them up and they put them there, and their almost full-time job is to oppose India, to oppose Hindus, to attack them. Then there is the other side of it, which is, you have people that are somewhat politically active as Hindus, and um, a lot of them, with some exceptions, are not highly sophisticated in the way that they are articulating. So the left side of the Indian diaspora that is very much opposed, to India, to Hindus, is also embedded within academia, and is and also media. A lot of the media, Columbia School of Journalism churns out a lot of this, and so on and so forth. And then there's the other side, which is kind of more on the Hindu activist side, a lot of which is not very sophisticated, um, and a lot of, if you look at academia itself, you will find a lot of, to respond to your techie question, you will find that there is a lot of academia from India, which is in the techie fields, that are in STEM fields, that are in different kinds of much more hard sciences, that have not been deracinated, that have not gone through this whole deracination that happens via the social sciences, and they are much more inclined to have favorable view, or a less biased view of Sanatan Dharma, but they are not in those departments that are expected to represent that point of view. So somebody is in mathematics or physics, or even economics, to some extent, they are not the ones that are weighing on in this whole, all these people who are representing themselves as South Asian, and dismantling Hindutva and doing all a bunch of all that stuff. So between those two, the ones that are more sympathetic, and the ones that are completely opposed, the vast majority, I would say, especially in the tech world, especially in the big tech corporations, are simply apathetic, is what I would say. They don't care, and they are very much dissociated with a lot of that is happening. They just want to go on with their careers, and there is a message for them also, which is that you cannot hide your head under the sand for a long time. You think it will not affect you because you are successful as an individual in your career, but it will affect you. And one of the organizations that we've seen, again, front organization called Equality Labs, and the aim of this, it's funded, if you look through that, it's funded by people who would like to erase Hinduism, and again, it is manned by some Indian sepoys, and they are now taking the fight into the tech world, and they are filing lawsuits against techies, saying, oh, you're discriminating based on caste. And now, so a whole bunch of discourse on caste has been brought to America. They have no problem targeting a minority Hindu community in the US, using this colonial trope, and they are now constantly going on this attack, and their aim is basically to enshrine this notion of caste into the US legal framework, so that then they could attack those people who managed to migrate from India to the US, or came to the US as part of the tech diaspora, and show them that uh, and basically put them on the back foot, so that they, if some of them were planning to be articulate, they would be put behind. So that's what I would say is the landscape, in a way. I mean, it's one, I wouldn't say it's the landscape, it's a picture of the landscape.
Okay, let's go to Vibhuti Ji. Vibhuti Ji, you spent, for instance, in the end, Sankrant mentioned equality labs. And I would like to have your point of view, because you're a soft techie and a finance guy and economics guy. So, and,
Yeah.
but you have also spent a lot of time fighting this equality labs kind of trope. You've been associated with those people for quite some time. Uh, do you share this grouping that Sankrant has put forward? And anything else you would like to add?
I would like to. I share it. I share it, and I definitely want to add also on one more thing, very important. As the saying goes, कि पहले अपने आप को अपने गिरेबान में झांकना है. We have to look at what are we doing, and then unless and until we fix ourselves, we can't fight. And that's what is happening. And talking about this wokeism and all this cultural thing that is happening here, you know, sometimes you wonder is if the wokeism is the highest amongst us Hindus. I this is a thought. Is it highest amongst us Hindus? Because we are the ones who accept and adjust with everything that comes our way. We are most willing, most eager to appease others. As a result of which, and Sanuji, I must compliment Sanjay Dixit ji, myself, Jaipur Dialogue, and all the participants here, because we are indeed shaking the tree now. And I'm very happy to share this with you today. That I had a couple of technology fellows from London and Seattle and other places who have called me up. And they want to speak to me because they say that you guys have done an enormous job of waking us up. हम तो भटके हुए थे, भूले हुए थे, बहे जा रहे थे. Because of the cultural influences that wokeism and the universities teach us. Now, here is a very interesting information. This young man from Seattle sought my time out, spoke with me yesterday 8 p.m. my time. And he said to me that, Vibhuti ji, it is shocking that आज हम इस बात के लिए हम aware हुए हैं, we have become aware that barely 3 to 4% of the technology students or workers who are here even care for India. You use the word, Sankrant ji, about they don't care. That is such an eerie thing to hear yesterday, and you said the same thing today.
Apathy, complete apathy.
Complete apathy. They don't care anymore for India. And the reason why? It's very interesting again. Because all these people have passed through they had excellent credentials with reference to their academic achievements, passed GRE, GMAT, TOEFL, जो भी होता है. They came here on qualified basis. They came here as performers. They lost the seat to somebody who had much less marks than him. When they come here, you and I know, we all know, their life becomes remarkably comfortable. Good weather, good climate, काम कर रहे हैं, जी रहे हैं, they become automatically, and they pay through their nose for their education, other than those who got scholarships and things like that. So these people, when they are here, there are over 500,000 Indians who are on H1 visa right now. And this year itself, so many more will be getting. 70% of the H1B visas are given to Indian technology guys. So the point is that these people then begin to love living in America because life is so comfortable. Why get into a scenario where we can land into trouble? And that becomes even more accentuated and aggravated, because if you do show up and ask a question, then you are targeted. This is what becomes a very important thing. I know for sure that an Indian technician working in Germany in a lab, a pharma lab, on COVID virus scenario, because he spoke against Islam, because he spoke vociferously on a social media channel, 4 Muslim guys complained upon him and he lost his job. He was fired. This is what is important, that we are ourselves so frightened, we were talking about it, that we get scared because we are all alone. And that's what is important for us to remember. Give you another simple example. Everybody was greeting in a social WhatsApp group, Diwali Mubarak, Diwali Mubarak. मैंने उसमें एक छोटा सा टुनका मारा. मैंने कहा, why Diwali Mubarak? Why not Diwali की शुभकामनाएं? The शुभकामनाएं sounds much better than Mubarak. हमने आज तक ईद की शुभकामनाएं तो नहीं सुनी है.
That's a good idea. Next time I'll do that.
Yeah, let's do that. So the question arises here that we are more willing to subscribe to and accept other people out of considerations of our own, but nobody gives a damn to us. When somebody says सलाम वालेकुम, हम उसको वालेकुम सलाम कहते हैं. तो एक दिन मेरे दिमाग में भी आई ये बात कि भाई इसने कभी मुझे जयराम जी की नहीं बोला, जय श्री कृष्ण नहीं बोला. तो नेक्स्ट टाइम व्हेन ही सेड जय वालेकुम सलाम, आई सेड जयराम जी की. So, it's something like we have to make an internal shift within ourselves. Indians have done well. And believe it or not, this young man was telling me, this girl from London was telling me, it's so fascinating to hear people in America, Hindus in America are rising up to protect Sanatan Dharma. So there is an awakening happening, and India has a unique opportunity, as I call it, of taking advantage of the technology leap, hardcore or softcore. We have to take advantage of the technology leap that has come our way to assert, arise, and awaken ourselves and act on it. That's what is important. We have to call the shots. We have to demand reciprocity. We have to ask questions. And I'm here, very simply put, there are so many Indians who have done very well. This guy from Seattle was telling me that we are making a lot of money, but we are not even willing to give even $1 for a charitable cause to India, because we are totally apathetic. We don't care anymore. And this guy wants to work with us. And I have invited him on a Jaipur Dialogue USA, 2 or 3 of the students like that, as to what are they encountering issues. Let's talk about it. Let's take the message forward. So I agree with Sanatanji, Sankrantji, and I'm very proud that we are involved in a battle. I call it the battle royal, that we have to make sure that wokeism doesn't defeat us.
Actually, Sanjay ji, can I respond?
Royal, Sankrant, what I want to ask you is that, that we're talking about the tech scenario, the techie scenario, or the more appropriate word, STEM, the STEM people. But there is the saying that you may not be interested in war, but war is interested in you. And that is precisely what is happening with this equality lab scenario. That you came away thinking that you left caste behind. When you come here and you find that this trope of colonial trope of caste is chasing you all over again. And then you start wondering where you've gone wrong. I think probably where they've gone wrong is that they have been apathetic. And if they remain apathetic, then the war will be upon them.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things I would say. One is that I don't think we should make woke culture particularly a target for us. If you look at, I've always, in a way, been part of the American left, and there are still certain things that resonate with me there. And if you take some of the basic stuff, did white Americans, have a genocide of native peoples on Americas? Absolutely. Did they? Is there entrenched? Has there been slavery, and has there been color-based bias and racism? Absolutely. Right. So what I'm saying is that we don't have to say particularly, especially as Hindus and as people who are immigrants, who are Hindus, who are are people of color, who are in the United States. What we a lot of the people are on the so-called woke side would be sympathetic to us. What is really happening, though, is that because of what the Indian left has managed to do, and I would blame actually what Indian education produces, and really no other, like when Chinese are coming to the US, or when other people are coming to the US, their primary agenda is not to go and attack the home country that they're coming from. But because of what Indian education has done, and again I would squarely blame what is happening in India has managed to export this set of people that firmly are opposed to the Indian civilization. They think it's oppressive, it needs to be dismantled, and this is their firm belief. So Of course, there are a lot of paymasters that help them along in those beliefs. But this is something that is cultivated in our higher education academic institutions. So what is happening is that, I wouldn't take, what I would do is I would articulate why the rather than saying some that woke culture is our enemy. What I would articulate is, why is this act of the Indian left a continuation of white privilege? How this whole discourse in caste is actually emanating from colonialism, is a form of Eurocentric white privilege that is being imposed upon a native people. And I would argue it from that standpoint, rather than trying to say, okay, so-called attack woke culture. Because, I mean, for me, it's really strange, as somebody who has been actually articulating many of these points of view, where we can talk about indigenous people's rights, and even now I've been, a lot of people even on Twitter who are Native Americans, for instance, have said, okay, you've always been speaking out about our issues. How did we suddenly become, so it's like a sleight of hand, where the people who actually experienced colonization, right, the people who actually were subjected to, in fact, two different waves of colonization. We were subjected to Islamic colonization that nobody talks about, and we were subjected to Christian and British colonization. So we were subjected to these waves of colonization, but because of a sleight of hand, we are actually being shown as the aggressors, right? So this is and that has also happened by using a completely Eurocentric gaze upon Indian society and the construction of the caste system that happened, during British colonial rule. And that, we are literally working off the lists that the British created. I mean, scheduled caste is a category that the British created by making up a list. Scheduled tribe is a category that the British created by making up the list. This very notion of tribal itself is a Eurocentric notion. We never divided up our society in that framework. There is no ancient text that's talking about tribal people that is coming from India, right? So this very, you translate it, okay, they translate it to Adivasi, which is again trying to impose the European framework of going and uprooting indigenous people, and then saying, okay, these are the aboriginals, which is a complete bunkum. It's a scientific bunkum, and it is a sociological bunkum. But you coin this term Adivasi. This term does not exist in Indian texts. Then, of course, the response to that is you can coin a term Vanvasi, which is also equally absurd, because now you have accepted that category. You have accepted the category that these people, that the colonial regime has imposed on us. So I would argue a little bit differently in two ways. One is that we need to articulate our positions, rather than say, rather than as an opposition to whatever is happening. And it's not like I agree with whatever is happening in this wokeism. I think there are elements of truth in it. There are of course all kinds of problematic things also. But I think this notion of privilege is very right. But what we need to do is we need to extend that argument to India directly. We need to say, okay, let's talk about white privilege in respect to India. Let's talk about how white privilege has constructed India. Let's talk about the Eurocentric gaze in respect to India. Let's talk about all these people talking about caste in the academy that are simply taking what the white man had done and just extending it. And I had a very interesting conversation with Madhu Kishwarji on this human rights issue. And if I draw a map, what happens is that, let us say there are two great powers in the world today, right? We can say the US and China are the great powers in the world today. So when one country claims to speak for the so-called minorities of another country, and forget anybody else, even when Indians are speaking about, see, just like the US releases human rights reports, now China has started releasing human rights reports. right? So China releases a human rights report on the US now, right? And it actually takes memes from this woke thing and says, oh, look, Black Lives Matter, look at all the oppression that's happening. So all this China is producing on the US because it is seeing this discourse as part of a war. It is seeing this discourse as part of a narrative war. It is not, oh, India happens, oh, USCIRF reports come, we'll say, oh, no, 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 US, let's go plead with them, tell them, no, 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 this is not right, right? What does China do? China says, okay, let me bring out the dossier on the US, right? This is my dossier that I'm releasing on the US. So human rights have been weaponized, and even for instance, Indians when they're so when China is saying Black Lives Matter, is it because China suddenly cares for black people a lot in the US? It's not. But why do we assume when the US is saying X about some minority, it is because it cares for that minority? We have given this white man civilization mission a pass and assume that when they are speaking, then they actually care about this. But the fact of the matter is, this is part of the geopolitics. This is how a dossier is created. So when they have to invade Libya, when they have to invade Iraq, right, then they bring out the dossier. Oh, Gaddafi, this has all this human rights record. Saddam Hussein was so terrible. अरे कल तो सद्दाम हुसैन आपका आदमी था, तब तो टेरिबल नहीं था. आज आपने उसको इन्वेड करने की सोच ली तो वो टेरिबल हो गया, right? So it's the same guy that has been doing everything that you are accusing him of doing. All you've done is been collecting the dossier when he was your guy and he was towing your line. Then he was a good guy, and as soon as he you want to take action, then you bring it out and do it. So what I would say in response is that we have to be smarter about how we respond, and we have to look at this discourse is happening. It is part of the global narrative war, and how do we intervene inside that? How do we question that and say, okay, let's talk about colonization, let's talk about Eurocentrism. Why is it that all these so-called Indian wokes are going around and talking about, oh, this tribals are happening, this is happening, caste is happening, caste oppression? They wouldn't, for instance, talk, and we have documented this in our Hindu human rights report, how many uh, so-called people who are categorized as Dalit are being targeted by Muslims in India, right? There's a whole range of that, but that doesn't suit the narrative, so that would be never talked about in this whole discourse, right? So we have to go back and we have to. So the first point is that we cannot look at we should not take a position where we are taking the woke stuff as our ideological opponent. Rather, we should challenge it on their own claims, that they're fighting white privilege, and say, okay, let's look at that in the context of India, and how is that playing out when you're looking at India. And the second part is around the apathy part, which is that the tech diaspora um, are apathetic, but it is worthwhile telling them from this platform also that you can run, but you cannot hide. Which is that you might think that you can be in your little cocoon and you're enjoying your vacations in Hawaii and all, the world is good and you have a nice car, but that thing that is attacking the civilization ultimately is coming for you, right? So either you get woke, you wake up right now and actually say, we're going to be aware of what is happening, aware of all these dynamics, aware of the huge amounts of funds that are pouring in to target you specifically as Hindus in America, as Indians in America, and saying, no, 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 I'm not a Hindu, all this is not going to save you, because they don't care, right? Unless you have started, you jumped on the bandwagon of Christianity or jumped on the bandwagon of Islam, just saying, oh, no, no, I'm not a practicing Hindu, I'm this, I'm that, all this wishy-washy thing is not going to help at all, right? So yes, it is important to speak up, but it is also important how we speak up. And I think we should definitely articulate our position in a way that is accessible to the left in America, that is accessible to the people who are who are claiming to be championing woke causes, because it's very logical what we are saying. We are saying we are a people who have been multiply colonized. We are an indigenous people. We are non-white people. And this, if you're claiming to talk about all these things, then listen to us.
Okay. So, Vibhuti Ji, you
As
can run, but you cannot hide.
absolutely true. That's what 12 years ago, doing some work with an investment banking company in Bahrain, I had a point that technology will force a certain amount of higher level of integrity and decency in people, because you can't hide anymore. Because you can't hide anymore, everybody knows what's going on. It's only the question of time when you know. So Sankrantaji talked about Ovochism, and I have said this. We have to play the game now. You are entering the game. We are entering the game late, where the rules of game have already been made. There is nothing that we can change unless and until we demand that change. So my fundamental one thing which I realized, which I learned from opposing groups of people, one of their starting points of any conversation is they reject you outright. You are wrong. Now, the question is, to that person, I can't say, let's go and have a drink and change your opinion. No, it is not there. You have to confront that assertion then and there, right there itself. So when I say that we have to treat wokeism, is because of the full recognition of the fact that we have to make an internal shift within ourselves. That we are perhaps, we have already embraced wokeism as part of our living style. Sab theek hai, chalta bhi jaane bhi do yaro, chalta hai attitude. This is what has become endemic part of our life. And until we change that, we can't fight what is coming to us. So I would say that the battle has to be fought on many fronts. And thanks to technology, we can take that on various fronts. Extremes drive the middle is a management principle that we devised in our work. It's always the extreme that drives the middle. Change, innovation always happens either right or left. And then they converge towards the left to center to change people from that point of view. So unless and until we take a stand that this is hurting us and will not let it happen, it will continue to eat in us. And that's what is important for us to figure out. How do we do it? And you are absolutely right. The words to use, the battle to fight, will have to be based on our principles. The word we use, as the famous saying goes, words matter. What we say, what we do, language shapes our reality. It is absolutely true about that. There is the languages that we speak, the declarations that we make, affirmations that we make, assertions that we make, shapes our reality. So if Salman Khurshid says that Hindutva is like ISIS, it is not polite to say, oh, he has written a book, A Freedom of Speech. No, we must go and tell him. Tell the publisher not to publish the book, not to sell the book. We must protest to the bookseller. Don't keep this book because we are not ISIS. Both the arguments have to be made at the same time. And I wonder if if you and I had written a book, the Islam is like this, our people would be gunning for our heart and mind and blowing us away. That's the point which I'm trying to say. लोहे को लोहा ही काटता है. लोहे को अगर आप चरणामृत डालेंगे तो वो चेंज होने में बहुत समय लग जाएगा, युगांतर बदल जाएंगे. That's the point which I'm trying to drive at. We are at that point in time in our lives that if we do not deal with it, we will get overrun. And to prevent ourselves from being overrun, it is important for us to take a stand. This far and no further. My favorite, all-time favorite, we have to draw a Lakshman Rekha. Salman Khurshid, you are not only wrong, but you are lying, has to be our response to him. Withdraw the book has to be a response. That's not freedom of speech. That is the abusing of freedom of speech. To call Hindutva as an ISIS, That kind of really makes me revolt against that. Same Salman Khurshid, who went with Manishankar Iyer to ask for Pakistan help to dislodge Prime Minister Modi. Or same Rahul Gandhi, who came and asked for a US ambassador to interfere in India. That has to be stopped. It is not human rights. We have to recognize that part of it. So when our enemy is playing, abusing our rules, I go back to a conversation soon after 9/11 when I was told by somebody that we will hit you hard on every single law, and privilege is part of democratic principles. I will do what I want to do, sue me. That's the point which I'm trying to say. We will kill people, and your Hindus, your WASPs, your Jews, and people will fight our case for free. I'm saying when somebody abuses our ability to adjust and accommodate, that's the time we have to tighten our belt. That's the time when we have to draw a line. And that time has now come. If we are slow in responding, if we are too concerned about being polite and cute, it's not going to help. It's time for us to assert ourselves. This is no longer the time to be cute. Oh, aap bhi achhe hain. No. Aap nahi hai achhe. That's important. There is a very important reference I want to make to you. Yesterday on Clubhouse, there was a conversation about something, and there was a young Muslim boy who was talking about the Islam is so beautiful. And there were people who were asking him, do you agree with halala? Do you agree with triple talaq? Do you agree with this? And that guy says, look at the gall of him. These things don't exist in Islam. Ye to aap hame badnaam kar rahe hain. So, when you have this conversation going on, we have to confront. And I'm very proud of that group. They stood up and they threw him out. The boy ran away from there. You have to be aware of this part. And I'm saying that this awakening which is happening, and I take credit for the institutions like ours that we are doing through this medium, and Sankrantaji, you are part of that medium, is that we are creating awareness for people to act. And that's what is critical for us.
Okay, so Sankrantji, your observations on what Vibhuti just said. You're muted.
Mute him.
You're mute. You mute.
Okay. I agree with this idea that we need to be not diffident, and we need to be very clear and even aggressive as needed. But the manner in which we articulate, we have to be much more sophisticated, because a lot of times I find people, even on social media, and people who follow me on Twitter, on social media, are aware that I don't hold back punches. I definitely stand my ground, but at the same time, there is a way to articulate it which makes it more comprehensible in a broader way. So this might not be the best example, but there's a funny example where this Christian missionary, Indian Christian missionary on Twitter, wants to proselytize to me. So he's saying, we can get just accept Jesus and you'll get moksha. You don't have to do all this, go to all this trouble. So I said, great, have you gotten moksha? And then he's a little nonplussed, and then he says, yes. And I said, good, throw away your Bible, because once you've gotten moksha, you don't need any of this, right? So, and then he vanishes and he doesn't come back, because again, it's like you cannot translate Christian salvation, or even Islamic salvation, which is about getting this nice seat in heaven where I won't go into all the descriptions of what their respective heavens are about, but for us, that's a very low level of existence. You're saying you are basically stuck in a very low chakra. You're stuck in some sensual realm. You are in raga dvesha, right? And then you're saying this raga dvesha is moksha, right? It's absurd. It's absurd from our point of view. So so I think if we start to articulate in a way where And also, I mean, the fact of the matter is that the Hin- there was this Newsweek article that you guys, many of the readers would be familiar with, which said we are all Hindus now, speaking to Americans, where it was listing qualities like the fact that there is a plurality of paths. For Hindus, this is like we don't even think about it. We think this is natural that there's a plurality of paths. Right? This is why we have this idea. You each to their own. If somebody's worshipping one way, or somebody's doing their padati one way, or somebody's a disciple of one guru versus another guru, we've never really had an issue with that. In fact, what we've done is that gaze that we had, which was around pantha, that there can be many panthas, we have accorded the respect of pantha to those that are not really panthas, right? So we've from our point of view, from our drishti, these religions are simply other panthas, and we don't there what is the conflict? They can follow their way to salvation or happiness, and we can follow ours. But this is not. So there is this gaze that brings us, which is why we have this accommodation, this vision of accommodation. But and of course this whole misquoted phrase sarva dharma sambhav, which actually doesn't mean anything like what it's been turned into meaning. But even if you take it as face value, uh, first you have to articulate that these are dharmas that you're giving the bhava to, right? So are these creeds dharmas at all? First we have to ask that question. And as we look into it, we see they're not dharma, they're adharma, they're ghora dharma. how can we how can we accord ghora dharma the status of dharma? So we have to, so absolutely we have to be very articulate, and there is no reason to back off. But how do we articulate it in a way that, because some of these, in fact, there's a very interesting Pew survey that recently came out, which is saying almost across, at least in their survey, and always take it with a little bit of grain of salt, almost across the uh, Indian religious landscape, when they interviewed Hindus, Muslims, Christians, other people, the recognition of pluralism was actually there across that. Uh, of course, we know that there are many kattar elements in the monotheistic faith, but even so, in India, because of the plural ethos of India, some of that has gone on to the other things, at least uh, from a articulation standpoint. So we look at that and we say, okay, in the US, when the Newsweek is saying we are all Hindus now, so they specifically referred to certain things. They said more people in the US now are saying that they believe in the multiplicity of paths. Of course, this is a very un-Christian point of view. The Christian point of view is not that there are multiplicity of paths. The Christian point of view is only Jesus saves. There is no way to go, I am the way, and Jesus is the only way that you get to heaven. Unless you accept Jesus as salvation, you cannot progress. So the but more and more people in America have questioned that, and they are saying, okay, there are multiple ways. So in a way they are becoming Hindu. Another way that they pointed out is that the notion of reincarnation, the notion of karma, all of these are becoming more prevalent in the US, and more people are accepting these ideas, right? For From a Sanatan point of view, it's obvious why this would be so, because finally the truth will always come out. It doesn't matter how much you suppress it, how much you twist it, how much doctrines you create that are nonsensical. And this is one of the challenges Islam and Christianity face, both of them in different ways, is they are constantly fighting shirk, right? Constantly fight. What is shirk? Shirk is the natural way of the world. So what is nature is shirk. And what because that nature does not follow the commandments of the book. So it's a constant battle against shirk, because the entire natural world is against them. And from a Sanatan point of view, the 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 prakriti, it's not a good translation of nature, but prakriti, purusha, these things are there in the fabric of the universe. Right? You cannot, it doesn't matter how much you target Hindus or you do that. What is Sanatan is the Sanatan truth remains the Sanatan truth. You cannot suddenly get away from it. So what I would do is I would actually come with a lot of confidence, even though, yes, we are constantly attacked, even though, yes, there's a lot of misrepresentation, and I have written against that and challenged so many people on the misrepresentation. But the flip side of it is that my daughter, who's in the Bay Area, and in some senses, the Bay Area is one part of the crucible of cultural revolution in the US also. And she's saying everybody here goes to kirtan. you know people are so much, this is the cool thing. The Indian tradition is the cool thing here, right? Of course there might be many different new agey flavors to it, and many, they might, of course, they're not calling themselves Hindu, but the fact of the matter is that our practices, our yoga, our pranayama, our breath work, our meditation, our dhyana, whether it's happening in the Buddhist flavor or it's happening in the the sahaj samadhi or the transcendental meditation flavor or other things, those are the ones that, without that muscle power, without the money power, are today taking over the world, right? So what I would say is, we and I say this to Hindus in America, I say this to people who are, in fact, I say this to many times, to so-called Hindutva groups. I say, okay, what is your sadhana? What is your connection with your tradition? Right? You want to go and you want to fight for something, but you don't understand what you're fighting for. So how do we deepen our own understanding is another challenge, I would say. And then once you get to the deep understanding, it becomes very easy to articulate, because it is so relevant. What is Sanatana is also Nit Nutan. It is forever fresh, it is forever relevant, it is very relevant to people in their lives in this moment of time. And people all over the world are very receptive to it. They're extremely receptive to what we have to offer, what our civilization has to offer, what Sanatan Dharma has to offer. So if we take it from the perspective, and because I also end up doing this directly by teaching, for instance, the Art of Living course and other things. If we take it from this perspective of the knowledge that we have is valuable and sacred, and the world is thirsty for it, it is absolutely starving to get it. And this is true. Then we we actually have even more compassion about all the people who are stuck in ignorance, and who are forces of ignorance, who are attacking this, so that the world is unable to progress because of that. Right? So this is the way I would look at it.
Okay, so let me supplement this, Vibhuti Ji. Uh, the way Sankrant explains it, it actually occurred to me a long time back, and I wrote on it. I wrote something called "All Religions Are Not the Same," and I took it from Dr. C.K. Raju, because all religions are based on authority, and today, even the science, the way it is being taught in most places, is on the basis of authority. People, especially in India, people are not actually experiencing it the way it is supposed to be experienced. And Sanatana Dharma is an experiential framework, basically, as compared to the intellectual framework of other religions and all other dogma that passes in the name of social sciences. So, how about taking Sanatana to the people through the techies as something which is very, very close to science. Do you think that will increase its reception?
It will. It will certainly do. I mean, using what we know, using what we know is the best way to catapult yourself to the next stage. And listening to Sankrantji, I'm reminded of a phrase. I hope your audience appreciates that. We are all in the business of trying to promote the same cause, right? We may have a bit of a difference here and there in the approach, but that's all that is there. As the famous saying goes, we are all in the business of making love. We are only arguing about position to take. So the point which I'm trying to make here is that how do we take the next step? And I totally agree with you, Sanjayji, that knowing what we know, that technology and science is the biggest enabler, a biggest supporter of our Sanatan principles. We have to take advantage of that. And I'm in total agreement with the fact that the Americans and the West are embracing our philosophies faster than we are giving up. And we are trying to be less. So it will come back in a cycle, but it is critical for us here to be able to take the stand, as I keep saying time and again, is that, Sanatan principles will survive. The people are moving away from Catholicism or religion as we know it. There is a group of whole ex-Muslims, another category. But people are beginning to realize that in the relation with science and technology, this damn thing doesn't have any religious monopoly. Likewise, blood is red for everybody.
It works very well in detonating IEDs.
Exactly. It is also used for that. The point is very important. Like Sankrantji does art of living classes. I am practitioner of transcendental meditation for last 40 years. And I remember that in Manhattan, in a church on Shiva Jayanti, it was a life-changing experience for me. With more than 350 people, we were a handful of Hindus there. And the chanting of Om Namah Shivaya was going on by all kinds of people there. Blacks, whites, Jews, everybody was chanting there in a church, Om Namah Shivaya, in a very beautiful lilting voice and music. I'm saying the world is embracing us. It's time to ourselves to embrace ourselves. Because that's what is important. We need to embrace ourselves for what we are. We do not know that. And to that end, I'm definitely of the point of view is that we can take a quantum leap in our efforts if we are able to coordinate that entire thing. Last week, we were talking to Jayantji, right? I went to the temple yesterday. Here is the Panchang.
Oh, great.
Yes, the North American Panchang. Sankrantji, if you want, I'll send it to you.
Yes, please do. I'm very interested in this. In fact, we can even promote it on Garuda.
Listen, I'll tell you one thing. Raviji, who is in charge for this one. I promised two. I promised one to Sanjayji. I'll send it to him. And I'll send it to Jayantji. But I got it yesterday. I have one free copy of my own. I'll keep it. But I'll get you one, Sankrantji. That's my promise.
Absolutely.
And I will put in touch with Raviji, who will. And this is all very delightful. I mean, I'm marriage muhurat वगैरह सब लिखा है इसमें. And it has adjusted for the time difference between East Coast, West Coast, and the Central Time. So what I'm saying is that the science exists, work exists. The Hindu temple has been doing it for the last 15 years. Nobody knows about it. And that's the message which we have to talk about. Today, we know because of this technology media today, that North American temple, Hindu temple here, 12 miles away from my home, does this for the last 15 years. I didn't know about it. I go to temple every month, every now and then. And we didn't know. You did not know. Think about it. Here is what I want to say, Sankrantji, Sanjayji, and myself. It is basically a avahan to three of us. How do we get involved with the senior techies who are there, who are running the companies? And my thought to them is, don't become partial to Hindus. I'd say don't become impartial with Hindus in your conduct. That's the part which I want to call upon them. So if Microsoft and Google can be pro-democratic party then they can also be protective of Hindu philosophy because they are all part of the same stream. So my call to them is, I don't want you to be ostensibly and openly saying that I'm a Hindu part of it. Your corporate culture is requirement. You have to maintain a corporate neutrality. I have been in that position, so I can talk about it. So point which I am trying to make here is that let's go to them. Let's ask these people who are making boatload of money to contribute 1%, $100 for a cause in India or for people here. Let's create that atmosphere in which we become more actively involved in all these things. And I have said this before. India born confused desis who migrated here produced America born confused desis, and we all end up being Hindus in name only. So the fear that we will, after our generation is gone, what's going to happen to the future generation, we do not know really. And that has to be protected. That has to be.
Actually, yeah.
That's it.
Last word to Sankrant.
Yeah, so I'm actually not so worried about the future generation. I in fact find that the future generation is ahead of us, is understanding it better. Very interesting story is that I was brought up in a very modernist outlook household, and I was, my in fact we stopped eating ghee because some scientific research said ghee is bad, dalda is good. So my father shifted to using dalda, and he definitely was a modern man. But the interesting thing is that I brought my parents to Sudarshan Kriya, and and I see this, it's where, and I see this in the next too. If you go to, for instance, the Art of Living ashram in Bangalore, all of the people are 20 somethings that are out there, right? So for me, the more interesting thing is, how do we speak in a way that is accessible? And if we try to lecture the young generation, they're definitely not going to listen. But once we become sensitive to how the tradition is valuable to them, how do we understand what are the challenges that they're facing, and then how is this valuable in their life? I think that is one important point. And the other fact is that India still remains the problem spot. When I was giving you the example of my daughter, who was saying that so many people in San Francisco are so receptive to what, to, in fact, they're embracing the Hindu traditions, the Sanatan traditions. When she was in a camp in India is where she found the most deracinated people. She was like, this camp of 20 somethings in India, they are completely ignorant about the Sanatan tradition. All they learn is mockery about it, and and those are the ones that we keep exporting that fresh crop into the South Asian studies. In fact, my feeling is that if that crop of Indians in America, the ones who got the ultra left that got exported into academia, if they had articulated a pro-Indic and pro-Hindu point of view, which they can easily do within the framework of woke culture, within the framework of the challenges that are coming from within the academy about Eurocentrism and white privilege, if they had stood their ground and articulated it, they would have gotten a very, very positive reception. And the problem remains, it's that group that actually, because who does the white person ask? They'll ask somebody who looks like a Hindu and has a Hindu name. And what is the Hindu person going to say? No, I stay away from all this. These people are all fundamentalists. This is terrible. What is happening in India is terrible. And all these extremist Hindus are running around. I have nothing to do with it, right? So rather than being ambassadors and spokespeople of our civilization, they have become the number one force which is actually going against it. And so, this is one of the reasons I've been so passionate about speaking about education in India and textbooks in India and the frameworks in India, because those are the ones that are causing the problem. On the other hand, the solutions have also come from India, and it's so amazing that the Guru Parampara is the one, it is people of, Paramahansa Yogananda and Swami Prabhupada and Maharshi Mahesh Yogi and all of these people, BK Sayangar, these are the ones that created this whole wave. If you talk about even vegetarianism today that is happening, and the even so-called animal rights, which are used again back in India to attack us, a lot of the sensitivities and sensibilities of the hippie generation were actually informed by, I mean, the Beatles were Maharishi Mahesh Yogi students, and there was so much cultural influence that the 60s and the new age, the hippie, all of this were influenced by Hindu culture. And this is how many of these movements, even what veganism is happening, vegetarianism is happening, all of this came from Indian roots. But so what I'm saying is, come up, step up. I'm asking this to Hindus in America. Step up and arise awake and stop not, as Vivekananda is saying. There is nothing to be diffident about. We are the inheritor of the most amazing gift to humankind in the teachings of the rishis. And even now, we end up mocking one guru or another guru. Respect each other's, you might don't have to agree 100%. You follow your own path. Whatever your guru is, you follow that path. But have this mutual respect within the Hindu sampradayas, within the Hindu panths, and then respect the guru tradition that is even now creating change, and huge change across the world. So that would be the place where we start to create change outside of that bubble, or outside of the people who are directly involved with it and into media, academia, and all these other areas.
Okay, so at that point, we bring this discussion to a close and go to the audience questions. I request the people here. Okay, so they're already flashing the question. So, oneness, thank you very much. Next. Quantum spin, Sadguna Vikriti, has been normalized as a virtue in zimmified Hindu society. Most want to look like forgiving angels. Will shaming this descriptive zimmitude work faster than trying to educate them? Sankrant ji.
मैं तो एक बहुत स्पष्ट बात करता हूँ कि जब यज्ञ विध्वंस हो रहा था, तब राम ने राम नाम नहीं जपा, धनुष बाण उठाया. तो हम राम का नाम जप रहे हैं. So Ram is not going and doing Ram Ram. He's picking up the weapons that are appropriate for tackling whatever situation there is, right? So if you're taking him as Maryada Purushottam, then absolutely. I mean, this normative ahimsa that came from distortions of Gandhi. Of course, he had no problem recruiting soldiers for the British Army at the same time. So all of this, we have to discard it in the way that we have to be very clear about what is it that the tradition actually speaks about. All of our Devis have astras, right? we are Shakti Upasak. We are about respecting and honoring the principle of Shakti. So once we understand that and come into contact with it, this whole dimitude files away. I think what really happened is that over the past 1,000 years, through different kinds of losses, through different kind of suppression, and this has happened to indigenous people all across the world. People, when you have been colonized, you've been suppressed, where speaking out your identity can be threatening to you. When if you raise your head, it'll be chopped off, right? You have gone through a lot of those periods, and people are still kind of like, don't make a noise, keep your head down. And what that means is, don't articulate your rights, don't stake your position, don't stand for your rights. So I think absolutely we have to reconnect that back and say that this sort of wrong application of knowledge. In fact, I was listening to a Sri talk just yesterday. You cannot take, you have to have vyavahar also. You cannot take a principle of Advaita and turned it into a Vyavharik, without understanding what is important from a Vyavharik standpoint. And of course, Krishna and Sanjay ji has articulated that so well in his books also. So, the whole Krishna trilogy and so on. But Krishna really is somebody who spoke to this so much, Sanjay ji.
Quite right. That's what I say, that people misinterpret Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam all the time because
Right,
they put it in the wrong framework. As simple as that.
right.
Next.
We must develop dharmic, social sciences, and tech simultaneously. First for
Okay, okay.
narrative.
Yeah. First for narrative, second against big media and big tech. Can't do it immediately, also can't take too long. Zimmy leadership is slowing us. Adventure time. The
Yeah.
Zimmy
So
word has caught on. I would like all of you to read the Zimma. You know what is the Zimma? The Zimma is the Pact of Omar. And of course,
yes,
you're
yes, yes.
reading Unbreaking India. Then I have reproduced the Zimma that was laid out by the Shah of Hamadan in Kashmir. So please read the Zimma. Then you'll know what Zimmi leadership is exactly is like.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I think I don't know which ones you want to answer or not, but I think it's the
Can you flash it again, please? The
the
question.
need for indigenous and our own gaze, on social sciences, on all of this is of course very much needed, right? And again, in a normal situation, the home country, which is India, would be the one that is articulating this framework to the rest of the world. But of course, Indian education is the biggest problem. So nonetheless, we absolutely have to uh, respond, and also have to articulate what is the understanding of the world that comes from Sanatan principles, right? And this is actually going to really bring a renaissance for the world, because so many places where they're stuck. I mean, if you look at social sciences, and Professor Balagangadhar has done a wonderful critique of this also, which is that all of those domains have become stuck in Western academia, whether it's psychology, whether it's social sciences, which is of course an oxymoron by itself, because if it was really a science, it should, science has certain things like predictive power. Social science should be able to predict what is the date of the next war that's going to happen, right? It should be able to predict a phenomenon in society, having but it's not, because it's simply um, it's built on a Christian theological framework. So it is not that we just have to articulate a dharmic gaze or a Sanatan gaze. That gaze will help take human knowledge forward in all these fields, whether it's physics, whether it's medicine, whether it's mathematics, as C.K. Raju has shown, whether it's the whole range of human sciences. So, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But we have to invest in it. We have to put our money where our mouth is. That is the most important thing, and invest in institution building, invest in the right kind of research tanks, things like what Jaipur Dialogue is doing. Garuda also was started exactly for this reason, that we have to start institution building, where we are actually institutionalizing this knowledge, where there can be a vehicle, a platform where these ideas can be articulated.
Okay, next one. Sim Singhania, no more Ishwar Allah Tero Naam, new Narais, Allah Yehwa जिनका नाम, मोहम्मद जीसस जिनका नाम, शैतानी करना उनका काम, इनको सन्मत दे हिंदू के भगवान ही भगवान पर्याप्त है, इनको सन्मति दे भगवान, वरना हिंदू करेगा इनका काम तमाम। वाह वाह, विभूति जी इसको नोट करें। नेक्स्ट। आपकी आवाज नहीं आ रही, आपकी आवाज नहीं आ रही है।
मैंने कहा कि I would request Console to send it to me, please, because I'll make it.
Yes. Infidel inside. Should there be age limit for people educated in India to emigrate? Also, please do work on US Panchang. It will bring a wave of joining Sanatan. Vibhuti ji, what do you think?
In Fiddle Inside, there is a North America Panchangam I was referring to. You didn't see this perhaps. But if you want to buy it, it is available. You can place an order. I don't know where you are, but it is for North America. So
You
US
can
with the
you, you
Panchang.
can you can you can send it to us so that we can put it in the description
Sure, I
below.
will do that. I'll do that. I'm sending it to you. I promised you, and I'm sending it to
No,
you.
no, people who want to buy it, so
Yes, yes,
we
yes,
can
yes.
we can give them
And
the
Sankrant ji,
preference.
आप अपना address भेज दीजिएगा. So I will ask this gentleman to contact you.
Hanji, Hanji, Hanji.
Please, please. That would be
Yeah,
wonderful.
please just WhatsApp me and
I will do that.
Gauri Dani, Indian youth abroad India. People abroad are mesmerized by Hindu temples, yoga, arts. Indians are against India more than anyone else. So she's actually uh, just resonating what Sankrant ji
And
said.
I
Yes,
just wanted
Gauri
to
ji.
add also on this one, if you permit me to do that,
Yes, please.
is like you had mentioned in today's program that look at Shivaji's act of killing Afzal Khan, how Gandhi and Nehru interpreted it, and what was the true interpretation of that. That's the education thing Sankrantji very rightly mentioned, that we are fighting against. We have been taught wrong history. And this is a contest that's what I refer to in the earlier stages, that we have to अपने गिरेबान में झांक करके change करना है इसे. We have to see where we have gone wrong. I mean, world is embracing our philosophy, and we are saying it is not for us. How bizarre can it get, really? And that's what is important for us, everybody, to rise up. And Sankrantji referred to Vivekanandaji's Avahan. I have been talking about that. Arise, awaken, assert. And I added Vibhuti Jha's fourth A to that is act. Santanu ji, you will like it. So I added the word act, the fourth A to that. So, we have to all get into that action mode now. Thank you. Thank you.
Right. Next one. Gauri Dani, Indian youths abroad are unfortunately ignorant about Dharma and spend most time speaking against Dharma. Well, speak against something which they don't know. They try to be more woke than average American is. And that's what Sankrant ji or Vibhuti ji also said. Quantum spin, Vibhuti ji, for Panchang gadgets we should approach PVR Narasimha Rao ji in USA and develop a smart Hindu time watch to redefine how to look at time daily.
All right. We have the high-tech guy with us here, Sankrant.
Sure, I think this is a good idea. I'll look into that. Maybe we'll do an announcement on Jaipur Dialogues next time.
Yeah, and I must share this because yesterday I came to know of a Belgian couple who have started a new instrument for pranayam, breathing exercise. You keep it in your palm. They just raised 1.5 million euros after 3 years of existence to make those equipments which allow, and they describe it. The breathing exercises will throw CO2 out and bring more oxygen. You will sleep better and rest well. Think about it. So this kind of
Make it simple. Next. Poonam B. Sarvebhyam Namaste. Is Zimmi in any way connected with the word Zimmedari? Wow, I didn't think of it.
Yeah.
Let me look into it. Poonamji. Poonamji always throws up interesting questions. Let me look into it.
Yeah.
The Zimmi is directly connected to Zimma. And Zimma, yes, Zimma also means responsibility. Okay. I think it does look like in a convoluted sort of way. It does seem to be.
Yeah, maybe somewhere किसी ने तोड़ दिया, धर्मो रक्षति रक्षता.
Adventure time. If you don't assert, claim, also reclaim Sanatana Dharma will get digested into distorted Western concepts like Greeks, Romans, as patents, books, etc. So, Kranji, any ideas? Brief answer, please.
I think Rajiv has spoken a lot about this, and I think it's the digestion and distortion has happened and has happened a lot. There was some tweet by Scientific American about cardiac coherence breathing, which they take pranayam and they replicate all the exercises of pranayam, And of course, where did they learn this pranayam from? All their researchers have learned it through the yoga tradition, right? But they rename it, and then in the article they mention in passing, of course, yeah, Indian yogis did it, but many other cultures did it. Ancient X, Y, and Z did it, but they haven't learned it from ancient XYZ. They destroyed all the ancient XYZ, right? So the place which is they're learning from, right? With the place which is living, they're learning from. They've erased that. And what the point I raised was, and there was a long kind of Twitter thread and debate that happened on this, where somebody said, "Oh, how does it matter what is the origin of things? They're talking about something that's going to help a lot of people. So why are you talking about origin?" And I said it matters because when you just take a little piece of it, you are depriving the general people of access to the entire knowledge base, right? You're taking little bits of parts of it and repackaging it. But if you tell them this is from the yoga tradition, let people go deeper into the yoga tradition and find out many more things. Why do you want to, why do you want to do it? And the second part is that you have to, in yoga, there is a principle of non-stealing. And if you don't nurture the tree that is giving you this fruit, eventually that tree is going to wither away. So it is the responsibility that if you're taking the fruit of the tree of yoga, you're also nurturing the roots of the tree of yoga. So absolutely, yeah, I agree with that.
Right. Next one. Poonam Vibhuti Jha ji, namaste. Where can I get one? I am in California once again. We will celebrate Children's Day on December 26th.
I'll coordinate with Vibhuti ji and we'll put it up for sale on Garuda Books also, so they can order from it.
That's right. Yeah. We'll do that.
Good,
we'll
good.
Do that.
Very good idea.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
Financial planning. Actually, before Christmas this time, we have to take out the truth of this Saint Nicholas also. He was a rapid proselytizer.
The whole Christmas thing itself is such a big fraud, right? I mean, the date is completely made up, and all of that.
That's right.
And New Year's is, of course, Jesus Khatna Diwas.
Okay, we'll celebrate that. Jesus Khatna Diwas. Financial planning. Took to entrepreneurship recently. Started fund. Need your blessings to contribute in future. I'm looking to sponsor, coordinate Sanjay ji's first trip to USA. Thank you. Thank you.
I like that. I like the initiatives.
Okay. Next. सिमसिंगानिया, यदि राम रावण को कहते कि भारत छोड़ो, रावण कहता कि सत्ता रक्त शामिल है, किसी के बाप का नहीं है, तो राम ने रावण को कहा भारत नहीं धरती छोड़ो, हिंदू के शत्रु धरती छोड़ो. Brilliant. Please note it down, desk. This is to be used in a graphic. Next. Ankur Sankrant sir, Devanagari based compiler and Ashtadhyayi, which can be used for Sandhi, like Ganana plus Yantra, Ganana Yantra, as per my limited knowledge. Can we have discussion on these topics with Dr. Subhash Kak or with you? He agreed to it last time, maybe at his channel.
Yeah. I think it's a worthwhile thing to take on. And maybe we can do a show here, Sanjay ji, because a lot of people have written to me about this particular topic. One thing we have to realize, though, is that Devanagari based compiler is not the most important thing. I think it's an interesting artifact, but the biggest problem is not having Devanagari based education to learn about compilers. not have Indian language education where you can see, if you look at what all the other countries do, whether it's China, Japan, all these countries, and sometimes people are so confused between programming languages and language of learning. China is not, in general, the Chinese are using the standard programming languages. They're not English. They only have a very few little keywords that are English, but you don't have to know you don't learn the English language to learn programming. You don't need to. You can learn a very small set of words that are keywords really. But what is more important is that all of the countries that are huge technical powers are using their language to teach about computers, right? So the child is not saying that in India we've made computers foreign to children by saying that first you have to pass through the barrier of English before you can get to computing. So we have to tackle that part, which is that you don't need to go through the barrier of English to learn computing. And within computing, yeah, sure, you can in C++ you are learning C out or something like that. That children can pick up very quickly. That's not the problem. But yeah, if there is a compiler in Devanagari, I mean, it can a lot of times it's a preprocessor, and yeah, I think some of these efforts can be useful, but let's not lose sight of the bigger problem, which is not having mother tongue education.
So we'll talk about scheduling this.
Yeah,
Next one.
yeah.
Poonam Babbi, how does it matter if it didn't? Why did these intellectual pirates formulate the laws of copyright and patents? Jesus Khatna Divas.
People are
that's
laughing at
that's catching on. Great.
that.
Next.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, she's just re-articulating that if intellectual property rights didn't matter, it doesn't matter what the origin of things is, then they wouldn't be so obsessed about this whole patent regime.
Oneness serves with Islam's firm belief in terming non-Muslims as kafirs or oblique infidels. It is not a religion. It is an out and out cult. I have said that so many times. Should be treated as persona non grata in the parliament of religions. Well, parliament of religions is politics of its own kind. So let them do that politician, that politics. Uh, I
If
think,
I may just say a quick thing here, is that
yeah.
this is precisely the kind of things that I have been talking about when I say ask questions and make inquiries. And with the help of technology, tools that are available to us, we can shoot it out to whoever we want. That's the power of technology that we can use. We can also be anonymous, just as oneness is.
Exactly.
Right?
Okay, let's move to the next one.
Yes.
Gauri Dani, Namaste sir. Why is Indian strategic think tank not investing in bringing back their talent from abroad? As you rightly said, Indian education is responsible for turning Indian youth against India and leaving for abroad. You really think, Sankranti, we need to bring people back?
No, I don't think that is the most important thing. Of course, there can be a cross pollination of technology and ideas and people, and that's not a problem. Rather, why has India not become a destination where everybody wants to go and study there? ये एक विडंबना बनाता हूँ संजय जी, real irony. India is spending hundreds of billions of dollars sent to US universities so that Indian students can go study in the US. Guess who's teaching them in the US? Indian professors,
Indian professors.
right? So what do? We export Indian professors, we export Indian students, and we export foreign exchange, right? Why is this happening? Because our structures have, our structures are not allowing that flourishing of talent. Ideally, the structures in India should be such that we are attracting talent from all over the world. Why should we be worried about exporting? We have plenty of people, let people go everywhere in the world, right? But the question is, have we created an ecosystem in India which is respectful of talent, which is not, in fact, India had wokeism far before there's the whole article by this Thomas Sowell, who's this very seasoned African American academic, which is saying India has already done all of this. It was woke way before the West was, in terms of doing like massive social justice and this, that, and the other. But it ends up creating more division in society, right? It ends up actually, the US is still in academia. The reason why US has people are going to the US is there is a culture that Silicon Valley created, that was very much around a meritocracy, that was very much around, all these Googles, everything was created by immigrants from Russia, from India, from so many countries across the world, from Israel. So they've created an environment which attracts people, and that is really the question we should answer and ask. Why is it that India has not managed to create a talent environment where people are rushing to India, where the people are rushing to India to start companies, to get their education, rather than exporting hundreds and billions of dollars to other countries for it?
Because of politics, because they can't get their hand out of regulation. They must regulate
Yes,
everything. So
exactly. ये तो ये
that's
तो
what
ये
is
तो
happening
संजय जी,
now.
ये तो संजय जी, मैं आपको रिस्पॉन्सिबल ठहराऊंगा, ब्यूरोक्रेसी से आए हो.
Bureaucracy merely holds up the status quo. That's bureaucracy's job everywhere, everywhere, including
Yes,
America.
yes.
Rajiv Daya, Americans are very favorable to Buddhism. We need to show Hindu Buddhist common philosophies. Yes, we've done a program on that with Conrad Elst. You can check on that. We've also shown that Buddha was very much a Hindu. Mithilesh Kumar, speakers are misquoting Hindu mythology. First of all, it's not a mythology. Get your semantics right, Mithilesh ji. Hindu gods and goddesses used arms to attack specific demons. It is wrong to encourage common man to take arms and attack another community. In a civilized society, it is the job of the government to protect people. What about a society where half are civilized, or rather 80% are civilized and 20% are not?
Yeah, in
Sankrantji?
any case, no, I don't think anybody is articulating. Firstly, it's itself is misquoting and misrepresentation. Nobody said, and nobody is encouraging common people to take arms and attack another community. Where did you come up with this from? No, absolutely nobody said this. So don't distort what is being said. But what we are saying is that we have to encourage strength. Strength is a good thing. We have been a civilization in which strength was pujaniya, right? So cowardice cannot be our high aim, right? We don't have a devi for cowardice. We only have a devi for strength. So this is the point that is being made, and to say that you're encouraging common people to attack, this is complete nonsense.
Yes, but we have to be ready for defense when we are attacked.
Yes,
Because
absolutely,
when we are
absolutely. So we have to
attacked,
cultivate the
we
strength.
can't depend on the government in that flash when the attack comes. We should be ready.
Yes, we
That's what
have
it
to
is.
cultivate our strength, and I think everybody should, I have gone through martial arts training. Other people should have martial arts training, weapons training. I think it's a good thing. People should be able to protect, when they are being attacked.
That what you said just now was music to my ears, Sankrantji. That when you said you have gone through martial art training, we have
Yes,
talked about with Sanjay ji here that every Indian must prepare, must be ready, saksham, to protect and defend everything that is yours.
But this is what
yes,
happened in
absolutely.
1947.
Yes.
The Hindus, they depended on the government and they got
Right.
slaughtered.
Yeah, but slaughtered. All the favorite armies of the British Army, battalions of the British
No, they
Army
just
killed
melted
Hindus.
away. They just
Yeah,
melted away. There was nobody there to protect them.
right.
Yeah.
And even now, you see what is happening in Bangladesh. I mean, people are getting massacred. Why Bangladesh? Look at what is happening in Bengal. Can you depend
Yeah.
on that government to defend
Yeah,
yourself?
in fact, we can have a whole show on this, Sanjay ji. This is such an important topic because there's a lot of misunderstanding around this also. And also, we have to realize that the whole modern state setup is where state has the monopoly of force, uh, which only works, so reliance on the state is, of course, part of that setup. But what if the state absconds? What if the state is not there to protect you? Then what is going to happen? Right, and we have seen many cases, Bengal being a prime example, where the state is not there to protect you. Then what happens?
That's what Second Amendment gun rights are in the US for about, right? Isn't it? What if your government becomes an oppressor? It's a very interesting dialogue that needs to be had. It's not about
Yeah,
guns.
I mean, it's a
It's
deeper
about
it's a deeper dialogue,
a
yeah,
deeper
yeah.
dialogue. Yeah, it is not. Yeah.
Okay, next one. सिम सिंघानिया, जिनको धर्म की आन प्यारी है वो कंधे के ऊपर से शीश कटाते हैं, जिनको कायरों को जान प्यारी है वो कमर के नीचे से खतना कटवाते हैं. आज तो सिम सिंघानिया जी बड़े बड़े जो हो गए कोटेबल कोट्स के साथ आ रहे हैं. वाह भाई वाह. Another one. Great one. Thank you. Next. Sudhanshu Pawar, brain drain is part of India. Country has zero support systems in place. I want to know, will this even change over next 3-4 decades? Well, the way it is going doesn't look very likely.
एक्चुअली मेरे को ब्रेन ड्रेन से ज्यादा प्रॉब्लम है ब्रेन डिस्ट्रक्शन की. जो MHRD है उसको उसका एक नया टाइटल होना चाहिए, मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ ह्यूमन रिसोर्स डिस्ट्रक्शन. बिकॉज what they have done is over 70 years figured out more and more creative ways to destroy Indian talent, language being the paramount one of them. आप ब्रेन ड्रेन की प्रॉब्लम इसलिए है क्योंकि आपने 90% टैलेंट को तो कल्टीवेट ही नहीं किया. 90% टैलेंट को तो कर दिया कि तुम रिक्शा चलाने काबिल हो, तुम MNREGA के अंदर वो कस्सी चलाने काबिल हो, क्योंकि आप अपनी भाषा में पढ़ नहीं सकते. आपने एजुकेशन सिस्टम का सत्यानाश किया हुआ है. एजुकेशन इज नॉट डेवलपिंग the brains. We have so many brains, we have so many people. Brain drain is not a problem. Brain destruction is happening in India every day. 12 साल आप एजुकेशन लेते हो संजय जी. 12 साल की एजुकेशन के बाद कहते हो कि आप किसी काम के नहीं हो, अब आप BA कर लो. ठीक है, BA कर लेते हो, 15 साल की एजुकेशन होगी, फिर मैंने MA सोशियोलॉजी कर ली, 17 साल की एजुकेशन होगी, अभी भी मैं अनएम्प्लॉयबल हूं क्योंकि मैंने कुछ सीखा नहीं है. 17 साल की एजुकेशन में I have not learned anything of value. This is the brain drain. This is flushing brain down toilets. This is what we are doing. So why are we worried about the 100 brains that go to the US? We are cultivating all the brains.
India's biggest challenge is to quote Nandan Nilekani's favorite phrase, demographic dividend, is to ensure that the dividend doesn't become demographic burden. And that's what is a bigger challenge. 30,000
Yes.
people coming here to study is that is a global scenario. People go one place to another. We have not created those conditions of satisfaction that people would come to us and establish places. We let people go elsewhere. I mean, there is no wisdom in it. I would put it that way, I mean, for every Indian doctor here who has made a professional impact, or a technology guy, or a banker like myself, who have made an impact, there are thousands of them back home in India. Why don't we create condition of satisfaction, of performance, recognition, and reward, which will allow people to be productive and successful out there itself? And there are people who are, but a larger number of people, that shift needs to happen very urgently.
The obsession with regulation, Vibhuti Ji, the
Yes.
obsession with regulation.
Absolutely.
Every university must conform to the UGC guidelines. So why the hell?
Why the hell?
Yes.
Let people study what they want.
Right.
And let them
संजय जी,
study the way they want.
इसके ऊपर हमको जरूरी है एक पूरा एपिसोड करना है. आई थिंक मैं आपको पहले भी बोल चुका हूँ. वी रियली वांट टू
बिल्कुल
have an episode on bureaucracy, dismantling bureaucracy. Let's start there and figuring out what would be a system that would actually work,
Dismantling
Sanjay will like
education
that. Dismantling bureaucracy. He's already out of it now. So let's go and dismantle that.
Yes. I'm all for it. In fact, if you're following me on Twitter, then you'll find that I tweeted twice.
No, yeah, I know that's why I'm saying, because you've already spoken about it and you have experience from the inside, and we have experience from the corporate world and outside, and I think exchanging ideas on how this can be made more effective, and dismantling the colonial Raj, at least, of the bureaucracy would be useful.
Okay, next one. Sim Singhania, Jinko Dharma ki. I am going to send Urdu translation of Gita with a copy of Wasim Rizvi's book Muhammad to my Pakistani friends. Please do. Yeah. You can send it only out of US. You can't send it from India though. Sudhanshu Pawar, to expand my question, how dumb is our system that universities ask for 99% marks and board marks? Do you think IIT entrance and IIT is a joke? It has been reduced to a joke. You only know they only learn in coaching institutes how to game the exam.
Right.
They don't acquire any learning. And then in IITs they go and they learn how to game the American system. in order to go to America. Gauri Rani, dismantling bureaucracy. Oh, I think it's already a hit. The topic is a hit.
हाँ, ये टॉपिक ऑलरेडी आपका सक्सेसफुल होगा संजय जी ये शो.
Uh, Shraddha Kapoor, we have world's richest people, celebrities in India who are not bothered about Sanatana, always common people and people who fight get slaughtered first. Why can't top-notch people even consider humanity and Dharma? I always recommend to people, this question has come to me often, and I always recommend to them to read the Gibbon's classic, The Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire. And it all boils down to the corruption of the elites, the intellectual corruption and the other corruption. Once they become intellectually corrupt, it becomes very difficult for the civilization to stay. Look at the example of the conversion of the emperor. The damned emperor got converted. Just imagine what kind of deracination, what kind of intellectual corruption must have been there. Next. Okay, so that brings us to the close of the session. Wonderful, riveting session. As always, when Sankrant ji is around, and Vibhuti ji to give us company. Thank you, both of you.
Thank you.
Viewers.
Thank
Jai Hind, Vande Mataram.
Right.
Yeah.
Press the bell icon on